Well, hello and welcome. I'm Sue Britz,
And I'm Tina Lokkbakk. Welcome to Retired.
the podcast where we talk about what life is like when we put on new wheels, new tread that move us to our next adventure.
So, Sue, I would regret not having talked more about regret.
I agree. I would have regretted it as well. So, we're back to the conversation about regret.
Regret.
So, this conversation today about regret is going to be based on an article that was part of this New York Times series that they're going to do on regret. So far, only one of them has come out, as far as I know. But the article we're going to use as our anchor for our conversation it'll be mentioned in the show notes, but it's called The Emotion I Didn't Expect as a New Parent, Regret. And it's by Miguel Macias. What's that face?
Well, because I just made a connection that on our definition, you talked about like the regret of not having done something and also the regret of having done something. And this maybe half is the focus on, oh my gosh, is he going to regret this article? Do you want to like summarize it for us?
Because that is, yeah.
It was so uncomfortably. All I could think about is when his kids get old enough to read this, how are they going to feel?
Well, I thought that too. And, and that's, I have to say, leading by example and having lots of integrity and honesty to the nth degree. He said a lot of things that I think many parents think and feel. And so that's bravery. That's good. And the reality is his life, and we saw this in the article, he loves his kid. And there's no way, if you live a life loving your kid, there's no way that kid's going to go, oh my gosh, he wrote this article way back and, yeah.
So one of our topics was moral courage, wasn't it?
Yes.
Was that the topic
Yes.
itself? And all I could think about was he had that moral courage. So you're right. He's aligned in integrity with himself. He's speaking the truth. I wonder if it's so uncomfortable for me because in my world of growing up, within my world as adults, within our society, we don't nurture speaking the truth. Like, for instance, hey, Tina, you like my new shoes? And I think they're absolutely ugly. I have been conditioned to say, oh, they're so cute. Lying. That's how we've been taught. Like, right? At least that's how I was taught, that you don't actually tell the truth. If someone says, do you like my new haircut? And you think it's absolutely ugly, you don't say it. And so he's saying the thing, like maybe one of the biggest things, and he has the courage to say it. So on the one hand, I'm like, whoa, this man is amazing because he's got the courage to speak his honest truth. But at what expense? And that's a whole other topic, do you say the truth?
That's being really honest. And I think that at what cost? I think it's actually it's pretty amazing because I think a lot of people feel this way. He had no intent to have any kids. And then he said that, and I'm going to quote, on the emotional side of things, the decision to change my mind, or rather capitulate, was fairly easy. I love my partner, and I wanted to make her happy. Her happiness was and is more important to me than my own life. Well, oh my word, you can't tell me that is hurtful. That he loves someone that much and can say that. Her happiness is more important than his own.
I have to interject. And so as I've been studying so much going in psychology, codependency, Codependence Anonymous, that actually is how I would have seen the world before. And now it's confused with he's doing this this is the epitome of people pleasing, but we brought a human into it. So I'm seeing it. I see your perspective And I'm also now confused because I'm seeing it from another perspective that I didn't have prior to divorce.
Okay, so here's the difference, though. I would say he's a guy.
Mm,
So in a patriarchy,
mm,
the men have the upper hand, and the cost isn't the same as it is for a woman. You know, when I heard that word capitulate, it's like that's the epitome of being in a marriage, or certainly a dysfunctional marriage, when you capitulate all the time.
right.
I know it didn't happen like, oh, okay, I'll just have a baby, whatever. This went on, apparently, you can tell that it was a thoughtful conversation. So at some point, there was something in him that said, I'm okay with being a father.
Or I look at it as, because he made it very clear, he had made a decades long decision to not have children. This is something in his bones. Normally you don't go through 40, he was 47, if I'm not mistaken. That stood out to me as well. For 47 years, he held on to this. What I want to know is, how long was he married to this woman before he changed his mind? How long has he been with this woman before he changed his mind? How much pressure did he have? Like, there's so much backstory that I can't just support it. I think that when you know for something so sure in your bones for that long, it's probably not going to change. So I think he truly did a dutiful thing because he loves her and didn't want to lose her. See, it's all how we see the story.
Right, right, right. That's true.
I like your story. Your story is much more uplifting, and it's more like fairy tale and more like Disneyland, tidy it up, happy ending. And I'm kind of, I don't want to be the negative Nelly here, but all I can see is he actually is not with integrity, and that's why he's writing this thing, because he's actually saying his regret. Now, if he capitulated because he himself wanted a child, he would have written this article. So
Right.
he wrote this article because truly he let go of his values for another human being. I, I see
You
your
know,
thinking cap is on,
I do.
processing.
Well, it's so easy to, like you say, we don't know the whole story behind and
No,
all the
we don't.
dimensions and everything, but certainly we're all, you know, um, hardwired within our culture to, follow the normal trend. You grow up, you get married, you have children, and all that. And for people to say, no, I really don't want children. I mean, you have to actively not want the children. That's different. I think if it was very actively, I really don't want children, then he never would have had children. However, if you're kind of like lackadaisical about it, like, you know, I don't want the responsibility of it. I don't like, and essentially I want someone else to be the main caregiver and so forth, and I'll have the benefits on the side of, loving someone. And so it really does depend on a lot of things that we don't have information on. But if we go by her happiness is more important than my own,
Mm-hmm.
well, that is interesting to think that he's got
Warning,
some,
warning,
yeah,
danger, danger.
he's got some
Orange
things to
flag,
work.
red flag,
Yeah, he's got some things to work on. Um, uh,
as we all do.
yeah.
The difference is that, you know what I could say? How many people have had children and they walk away? And because they regretted that decision and
Right,
left that child either with a
right,
mother or no one.
right,
So at least he is being responsible and following through with his action. So in a way that does speak a lot about his character. He's there. He's in it. He's sticking it through. And he's found love. So maybe for him, it's learning to love. Maybe he's never actually learned
yeah.
love. He's in the process of that.
Now who's being all romantic and
Yeah,
yeah. But no,
okay.
I think you're onto something like that. I think that is truth because that's another expression and form of love. And what's not to say that one changes over time as we learn and grow. And yet you're going to
True.
harken back to,
You're right.
originally I thought da 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 da. I think about myself, for example. I
That's true.
thought when I was growing up, there's no way I'm going to get married young. I'm going to get my career going, and maybe by the time I'm 30, I'll get married. And what do? I turn around and get married at 21, Um, and why? There's a lot. As a
Yeah.
young
That's
person,
complicated.
yeah, and as a young person, you think you have these ideas, and then you find out other realities, the realities of life as an adult. You grow up and you learn and you change. And so that's part of it too. Maybe that was part of his process.
So I'm hopping a little bit to the side. You can't teach a dog new tricks. People stay the same. There's conflicting discussions about that, where this man, like you just said, you were determined to not get married young and to do your career, and yet you changed. And yet they say you can't teach a dog new tricks. But you've learned new tricks. I've learned new tricks. So I guess it's because we believe in growth mindset. Maybe that's what it all is.
Yeah, I believe you can. Yeah, and in fact, I have an old dog. She's 11, and she does learn new things, and
Oh,
that's important. So I don't agree with even the saying, let alone the idea that
yeah.
I think it really depends on, does the person want to grow? And you might learn some
Yeah.
things and mislearn some things. You might learn some things incorrectly and have to go back and correct. But the thing is, when you do grow and learn, you carry your whole life experiences with you. So if you have this ingrained idea about something and you're changing it up dramatically, it's going to keep popping up and revisiting you and saying, hey, what about this? My original feeling or thought or belief. And so you have to keep refining that. With regard to having a child, it's a big question. I'm sure he and his wife had lots of conversations about it, and um, maybe he talked with his friends and started observing children and observing his friends and family with children in a different way, and started figuring out, you know, okay, you know, and you could call
Mhm.
that rationalizing or whatever else, but it's like you say, when it's done, and he's got this kid now. So,
And again, he's sticking it out. But you know what I kind of was thinking? Maybe, I would love for him to do updates every 5 years.
oh, that would be fun.
Yeah, maybe we should ask him. Can you please give an update every 5 years? Because maybe it's like I hate getting into pools of water. Can't stand it unless it's like 120 degrees on the outside. I do not get into pools. So I truly start with the toe, then the ankle, then up to the knee. Like I am very gradual at going in, and maybe he's at the toe and the foot. And in 5 years he'll be at the knee. And then maybe by the time he dies, he's like, this is the best decision I've ever made. Oh, thank God. Like we don't know where he is in this journey.
There's this part of the article. It says, um, "I've always had a bit of a rebellious nature, and it feels in a way pleasantly subversive and liberating to allow myself this forbidden thought, even in the privacy of my own
Wow.
mind. It is at the very least a reprieve from the feeling that parenthood should be a constant delight." Well, yeah, parenting is not a constant delight. And yet,
No, but I was thinking, is that what society projects it should be?
yes, that's what he's saying.
Yes.
And he's saying what we all know is that it's not, that it's very hard. I mean, after the tough parenting until your child becomes an adult himself, and even then you're still parenting
Yeah.
your adult children, um, you might go, it was all worth it. It was all great. And I don't regret any moment of it. Even the hard parts, I don't regret, because they learned and I learned. And
I'm there are two things that keep cycling into my brain, and I'm thinking about the pain that comes with having a child, because it is the moments of love and intensity and beauty is the greatest joy I think I've ever had. And I remember truly the best day of my life was really giving birth to my first. And I remember so grateful to be alone. Like my husband at the time was not anywhere around. It was all just me and her. And I loved it. And the And I just remember telling her, like, I will love you. I will do everything for you. I will, I mean, you are everything I wanted. And I want to go back to that in a minute. It was the best day of my life was having that child. And yet that child with a divorce has created the deepest pain I've ever experienced. So it's kind of like the yin yang,
Mm-hmm.
the greatest joy and the most pain I've ever felt in my life. Um, and I don't want to go into that, yeah, now, but it's a big thing. It's every emotion, isn't it? Having a child,
Mm-hmm.
it brings out everything, every piece of you, every trauma, every happiness. It's so all of it.
Having a child is, uh, you can't go back. Once you've had a child, you've had a child, and there's no do-overs. What other kind of regrets one might, there are ways to make up for it, or apologize, or do a redo, if you will, but not with children. And so when you decide to jump in and have children, I think part of this article is about how do you live with this idea of regret. So it's coming up. I didn't necessarily want to be a parent, but I'm a parent. And now what do you do with it? And that's, I think, part of what he's thinking about. So I, he talks about, he doesn't talk a lot about the being a parent. So I think we need some updates, as you said. But uh, wow, what do we do with this?
Well, I just it kind of has nothing. Yeah, it does. I think I operate from a when I make a decision, I really take the time. And when I got married, the discussion was we would have children. He put a arbitrary time, like we're going to get all kinds of animals and we're going to put it off 8 to 10 years. And I remember on year 9, and my sister-in-law, she brought up this thing like, if you don't want to have children with your man, then you really, um, there's something wrong with your marriage. So she had like some thoughts going on in my head because I wasn't quite ready. And then I thought, well, oh God, well, I should then be having children like now, like soon. This is like when I was 29. In fact, I knew you at that time. I was
Mm-hmm.
working with you at that time. And I remember I spent a whole year contemplating probably every day, do I want children? Am I having children because society says to, because I should, or because I want to? And after a full year of introspection, I decided, you know what? I really want children. I want to teach them. I want them to grow up happy. I want them to experience life. Like, I think life is worth living. So, in fact, yes, this is what I really want. And I really, 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 really want to teach them. There's the inner teacher. I guess I do really love teaching. So, when I made the decision, then it was getting the other half on board. Um, but really, it was my enthusiasm and commitment and knowing that I would not regret it. And I also asked myself, if you stop getting to go to movies all day long, sleeping in, traveling the world, will you regret having given those things up? And I thought, nope, I'm ready for this phase. I am ready to make this commitment. So I do feel good that I made a very thorough self inventory investigation and for a year. So I have not had regrets. The only time I've for seconds regretted it is when the pain has been so deep. And again, that pain came through the results of what happened after divorce. So it wasn't necessarily having to do with the children. It's what the divorce did to the children that created such pain.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole different take. As I look over the article, I'm seeing that it's more not about regretting children. It's more about having that thought and then changing his mind, and
Yes.
and then he goes on to kind of just like talk about how what regret does to us. You know, are we gonna? Because
True.
once you've had the child, that's done. Now you got to move forward and figure out what it is you're going to do. And you had a wonderful opportunity to make a decision about that, not just as a teenager or a 20-year-old. You waited until you're 29 and went through that year. That is uncommon, I think. A lot of people just
Yeah.
culturated to just go through life and, okay, marriage, children, or children happen, and oh, now what are we going to do? And, so it's, it is such a natural part of life. Um, but then to actively choose to have a child and raise that child, it's, I mean, your commitment's fully there. So there we go. At this point in his life, he's chosen, so it's done. It's a done deal. And now he's kind of doing this thought process on what is regret? How does it affect us?
I just thought of a reversal question.
Okay.
Now that he's had a child, would he have regretted not having a child? Because I was just thinking to myself, I would have been on my deathbed having regretted not having both my girls. So that just answered my question to my own self. I am so grateful, even despite it all, when it has been really the toughest. I would have regretted not having them. So you know what? I'm so glad I did. Whoa.
Well, that's what he's kind of saying too. He's like, who can live a life where we are always second guessing our decisions? So going back and forth, back and forth. If you're living in that headspace of, did I do the right thing? There's one thing of evaluating and thinking about a regret and processing it and moving forward. Another one is just letting it ping pong inside your head all the time. If it keeps ping ponging, I think growth and learning and understanding has not happened.
Yeah, it should ping pong. But I think that's why I spent a year,
Yeah.
because I did not want to regret that decision.
Yeah. For me, I'm not sure if we talked about it here, but I did. I really wanted to have kids. I've always loved kids,
Oh.
and I intended to have, two or three. But I remember in my marriage, uh, it was a choice. It was in a moment. And I know exactly when I became a mother. Um, it's after raising her, being the caregiver, being at home, managing
Mhm.
everything. I realized I've had my child. I love my child deeply, and that's enough. I process the fact that I don't necessarily need more children. I probably would have welcomed more children at that time, but it was too much. It would have been too much to have more children and have to be responsible for that child at the same level
Mhm.
I was to everything else in my life,
Mhm.
myself, my daughter, my then spouse. Um, it was too much, and it would martyr that child. It would martyr myself, and it
Yeah.
would affect my child. And when I asked, if we are going to do this thing, if we're going to have another child, if you become the child, the the primary care provider for this child, then fine. But I want a contract. I want it written
I
down.
think that's so shrewd.
I
That was
want
so smart.
to. I
That
want
way, honest to God, I wish I had had some contracts. I think they would have been violated anyway, but at least it would have been in writing.
right. That's what I'm saying. I want it in writing. I want
Proud
to
of you.
see a
Yeah.
commitment. And if you're not willing to commit to this, then no, I don't want to go there. I don't want to do that. And
Okay.
I
Hold on.
I
Hold.
understand from his point of view that it would be very insulting. But excuse me, who's
Wait a
doing
minute.
all the child care providing now and taking care of the whole house now?
Okay. This says everything about both of our situations. Because had we married men that really wanted to step into that role,
As a husband and as a parent?
we
Yeah.
we wouldn't have had to even think about a contract.
Right.
And there are plenty of partners out there that would have been like over the moon, like, are you kidding, let's have 20. And we probably could have, with the right people, had multitudes of children, enjoyed the whole thing, because if their enthusiasm, like you and I teaching, you and I fed into this incredible system, right? So if we'd found the right people, we would have fed into this incredible system. So the thing is, we, we, oh my God, that should have been warning flags, but we didn't know until we were until the decision, we didn't know who we really were
Yep.
married to
Yep. Or we didn't know
until we had the
ourselves.
result of what it was like to be raising a child pretty much single-handedly
Yep.
with everything else.
Yep.
And I think that is why I did not, because I had thought about 3. I knew 2 had to be, because I was an only child. So I knew I needed and wanted 2. So if I died, they had each other. Vacations would be less boring. Like, I wanted 2 so that they could love each other and to have each other when we passed on, because I didn't have that. I was always afraid of being alone. And here I am. It's not that bad, everybody. It's good. Anyway, but the third one absolutely was the same thing. I would have had to enter a contract, because I knew that I could not slice and dice myself into 3, and 2 was hard enough. And I knew that I knew what my level of support was going to be. But I think that's why I respected your contract. But like I said, how ridiculous. If we're both having to think of contract, what the hell were we thinking? Anyway.
Yeah. Well, it was a clear sign to me. It was kind of like throwing the gauntlet down. It's like, this is a clear sign that there's something terribly wrong here. Yeah. Interesting.
But yet, I admire us because we continued loyally, fiercely committed, and determined to continue on in what we thought was the right thing, to stay within the institution of marriage. And I do give us a gold medal because we went to the Olympics in our own way.
We did.
We went to marital Olympics and we came out with golds.
It came out golden because that's done. Bye-bye. No, interesting. This would be another interesting conversation. You're an only child. I wasn't. I have 3 siblings, but I ended up having an only child. So
right.
That's a whole nother
interesting
adventure, being, having sibs and not,
Yeah.
Add it to the list.
That would be a great talk. Yeah.
Well, this brings us back to the conclusion of the article, which I think is really pretty cool. Let me read to you. But life is long, and it has many chapters. We open new doors and close old ones. We change jobs. We marry. We divorce. We move to other neighborhoods, other cities, other countries. Friendships start, end, or change over time. We are healthy. We are sick. We lose people we love. At every turn, we leave behind versions of ourselves that we will never be, and versions of our lives that we will never live.
God.
That's what he learned from this. And it has nothing to do with having had a child. It has to do with understanding regret and its place in his life.
He's kind of tying it in a different way, in a very deep, moving way. The whole concept of the bucket list. Like, there are things that we will never get to. There are things that we will have done. It's the same kind of idea.
Yeah, and we'll never know how it affects us if we do it or if we didn't do it. And we can't go around second guessing and ping-ponging. You don't know what wasn't. And, it's fun to have that thought that occasionally, or to talk about it. I wonder if, but if you live your life with those what ifs and I wonder if and that turns into the kind of regret that pulls you down. And instead embracing, we'll never know. It's okay.
And I look at it right now as, I wonder if.
Oh, there we go.
For me, I'm wondering if.
So the future.
That's the place that I'm at right now on my side of retirement and trying out this business. Like, I wonder if I did this, what would happen there? So I'm in a place where I'm just excited about all the possibilities, and I'm really not sure. Oh my gosh. So this lady I'm having a retreat with this weekend, Michelle Hobart, love her. We came up with this idea. I've always talked about life, you know, how you're supposed to go with the flow. So I always saw myself on a kayak, which is rigid and it's pointy and it's hard to maneuver. And we decided together, we created this idea. In fact, it's on my flashcard. I even have a picture of an inner tube. And the reason why an inner tube is better to go with the flow is it bounces off the rocks. So does a kayak, but it's a stiff crashing. You've got the paddles. You're still trying to fight the water. But when you're on an inner tube, it's truly just a flow. You go in the eddy until you're not in the eddy. You go down the way. There's no trying to manipulate the situation. And I don't know why I just thought of that, but that's kind of what it's like. You just get on your inner tube and go with the flow and see where it takes you, you know, and enjoy where it ends up. Enjoy where it goes.
Perfect. That wraps up this episode of Retired. Thanks for listening.
Until next week, please feel free to lend your feedback or ask questions by emailing us at retiredpodcastnewtread@gmail.com. You're invited to follow us on Facebook at Retired Podcast New Tread. Check the show notes for links and contact information.
Retired is co-hosted by Sue Britz and Tina Lokkbakk. It is produced, directed, and edited by me, Sue Britz. Music and graphics are by me too. Please click to subscribe so that you won't miss your chance to join our retired road trip.